All right, welcome to your SitRep for the 25th of February 2022. 2022, yeah, that's the year. It is currently 20 past 10 on the AM, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So a lot of stuff going on in the world, obviously. Today we woke up and we are in a new phase of the world right now. Today we face a world that's in a pretty precarious place, to be honest. So this is the state of play as we see it. The Russians have invaded Ukraine, and in reality, this is the biggest invasion or military action that's happened in Europe since World War II. And we now find ourselves in a place where the potential major catastrophic events that could happen out of this have kind of increased, or the chances have increased. However, no nukes are being dropped overnight. We're all safe, we're all warm here in Australia, hopefully. But what we're looking at now is some tough times. The tough times are here. It's the beginning of the tough times, I think, is probably the best way that I would describe it. So yeah, that's the sort of state of play. But for today, my theme is don't panic. Try and relax it down. Take a deep breath. Everyone take a big deep breath with me. Blow it out and relax down. It's easy to look at what's going on, and if your feed is anything like mine, or like I woke up this morning and had 300 plus messages on my phone from various sources, it's easy to sort of get caught up in that and look at all that and go like, whoa, like everything's bad, we're all collapsing. But the world is in a kind of a tough spot at the moment that could go really bad. But what we need to do as individuals is continue preparing ourselves and becoming more resilient as a human being, and then connecting with other people and becoming more resilient as a community as well, to look after ourselves. That's I think what I want to kind of get across first off today, that we don't need to like freak out and start panicking, and I certainly don't want to be another voice adding to that kind of noise out there. Again, if I'm looking around, I've got Instagram here and I've got YouTube there. So for those who are playing along on either of those platforms, that's why I'm not looking at you. Also, feel free to chuck any questions you've got up. I've been getting questions all morning. A lot of people obviously pretty worried about certain things. Today, the sort of things I'm going to talk about, I will be talking about China, what's happening there, or what I foresee happening there. I will do a Ukraine update. And I'm also going to talk about cyber stuff, and in particular, 0 days. So I will be putting a video out. I'll shoot a video hopefully today or tomorrow about cyber attacks, and specifically 0 day attacks. And I'll explain what that is in a sec if you don't know what that is. But I'll have a bit of a chat about it today anyway. Let's see who we got on here. Cool. All right, so first off, a little bit of a Ukraine update. There's a whole heap of stuff going on, so I'm not going to touch it all. Essentially, what we're seeing, the reporting, and the more, like, there's a lot of reporting on both sides of the fence here, and a lot of it is nonsensical. A lot of it is contrary to what the other side is saying. So, trying to find really good information coming out at the moment is difficult. So I'll try and keep it a bit more broad, and try and keep it limited to major news sources that have been verified, or have been as close to verified as we can get. This is the fog of war. This is what happens. A lot of people will start putting information out there. A lot of people will be making mistakes. So they'll be going, oh, we're under attack. And really it's somebody letting off firecrackers, or somebody shooting at something, randomly because they thought they were being attacked. And all of a sudden the news starts reporting that the Russians are invading from, the sky or something like that. So yeah, it is difficult if you're looking at this and it just seems like the entire Ukraine is collapsing, or maybe you're looking at it from the other side and you're seeing heaps of people walking their dogs and sending TikToks and stuff like that from Ukraine, and everything seems fine and normal. Yeah, but so there's two different stories that are being thrown out there. But what we are seeing is Russia is coming in from the south. So Crimea primarily, but there are rumors of Odessa and Mariupol over in the east being attacked. On the eastern front, they're pushing in there as well, in that conflict zone that was extant already. In the northeast, they're pushing down in there, and it looks like they may have captured, or not captured, sorry, but started to surround the second largest city in Ukraine. And then the northwest or north, or however you want to look at it, they're pushing down through there as well. So primarily what's been happening is a lot of kind of artillery or missile attacks that have been going on, and they've been focusing on ground to air defenses. So the Ukraine defenses against the air, so that if they can wipe them out, then they can send they've got a lot of helicopters, Russia, so then they can send those helicopters in and start doing that. And I've just seen on the news in the last hour or two that the Russians have taken Chernobyl, which, there's a couple of reasons why they're going to take Chernobyl. That's an exclusion zone, by the way. So for those who don't know what Chernobyl is, it was a nuclear power plant that went up in 1986, exploded, and sent a lot of radioactive material out and kind of destroyed that area. So there's an exclusion zone around it that no one can go into, or civilians can't go into. But it actually has a very open route from the north, Belarus, down into Kiev. So it's beneficial from a military perspective that they take that, but also it's beneficial, I think, from a world perspective, that the word Chernobyl is known by a lot of people, and the fact that, it's a nuclear reactor. The fact that Russia has taken that, I think, is partly strategic and partly tactical in what they're doing, and then partly strategic as in they're sending a message out to the world. Look what we have done, and now that we're only an hour and a half away from Kiev itself. So that's kind of what's going on. There's a whole heap of other stuff going on in the Ukraine, and I don't want to harp on about it too much because you're probably getting hammered with it at the moment anyway. If you've got any specific questions about that, you can send them through and I'll try and answer them as best as possible. But one of the big things I want to sort of preface about the Ukraine thing, is how it's now got the focus of the world on it. And one of the outcomes that I've been talking about for a little while is that if this Ukraine thing kicks off, which it obviously has, it can be used as a distraction for other things to happen. And one of those things being China and Taiwan. So China's come out in the last 24 hours and made a couple of very intriguing announcements. They're not... the first one is the omission of them not doing anything against Russia. So they haven't come out and said yep, Russia's bad, Russia shouldn't be doing this. They've basically said Russia does what it does. I think the exact quote from their foreign minister was something like, Russia doesn't need our permission to do anything. When somebody asked if they had met, because Putin came over for the Winter Olympics, and there was a bit of a meeting between the heads of state there, and they asked, did Russia organize this with you, or did they try and time it with you or anything like that? And they basically said Russia doesn't need our permission to do anything. Yep. So Commie Hunter just said Ukrainian government telling people not to say anything about the Ukraine soldiers and their locations. That's a pretty smart thing to do. One other thing I will say about Ukraine, which I find very interesting, is apparently they have put out 100,000 weapons into the hands of their civilians at the moment. So they are arming their population. They've ratified that in government, that they're standing up the entire population. which is a big deal. Could you imagine, like, right now, something happening in Australia and they're going like, okay, every single civilian in Australia, if you can, we want you to be a soldier. We want you to be acting in a warlike manner, and here's a gun. So, if you want a gun, come get it. And the reports are anywhere up to 60 years old and anywhere as young as 16 are able to access a weapon. So, yeah, that's happening, which is pretty crazy, I think. Like, crazy interesting, like, whoa, that's quite full on. And also sad. I think, this is a bad time for Ukrainian people, and I'm definitely feeling for them. I would hate for this to happen in my country. Pretty sad day for them, and it's going to be a lot more sadness coming and a lot more hard times coming for them. All right, back to China. So, as I was saying, the foreign minister was saying a number of things. Firstly, they're not concerned about what Russia's doing. It's not their problem. There are reports that they're actually buying a lot of stuff off Russia right now, like wheat and such what. So there's still commerce going on there. They're not sanctioning them. They're actually increasing the commerce between them. And they also started making, they being China, also started making noise about Taiwan, or the island that shall not be named by China, because it is China. So they're talking about, the one China sort of policy, that this has always been part of our territory. It always will be part of our territory. It's actually, if you read the statements that they're putting out, it's quite almost aggressive, I would say. The way I read it, at least, it seemed almost aggressive. So I think they're starting to do exactly what Russia just did, but now with Taiwan. So Taiwanese people should be looking at that and going, look at what's transpiring in the Ukraine now, and thinking this could be happening. And a few hours back, or early in the morning Australian time, the report was anywhere up to 9 PLA aircraft, that being the Chinese aircraft, the People's Liberation Army aircraft, breached Taiwanese space. So they started flying around in Taiwanese space, which is, a bit of a big deal. So they're starting to move. We're seeing movement there. We're seeing the rhetoric come out now. And it's one thing that I thought was a very high possibility, to the point where I'm thinking it's probable. So this is something I've been asked by a few people on, and my opinion on this is that it's almost too good of an opportunity for China to pass up, that they'll probably look at trying to solidify their standing there in that South China Sea, and Taiwan in particular, take over that. If that happens, that's obviously got some pretty serious implications. So there's two things here that I'm kind of concerned about that could cause this entire situation now to blow up. First off is Russia, and we got some reports half an hour ago that Russia may be assembling some sort of force along the border to Poland. Now, that's a big deal because Poland's obviously a NATO member. And if anything spills out there, then NATO's in. They haven't done any backpedaling on this. They've been very forthright in saying this, like, we can't step into Ukraine. We cannot step into Ukraine. They keep saying that. But if you even, put one hair into NATO territory, then it is on. Whether they back that up or not is another thing, but it could be quite serious. The other thing is Taiwan. So Taiwan is going to involve the US. I don't think the US is that distracted with Ukraine that they're just going to let that go. So if that kicks off, if China does move on Taiwan, then that's going to be another thing. And then all of a sudden we've got at the best 2 separate territorial wars going on, which you could say that was essentially what World War II was. So people keep banding around the World War III tag. Well, that might be it. All right, I'll just read this out verbatim because I thought this was interesting. This is from Grey Man Briefing, a great channel on Telegram that you should check out. By the way, if anyone is interested in any of the channels and stuff that I look, the news sort of channels and sources and things that I look at, just message me and I'll give them all to you. I'm not like hiding information. There's nothing like super secret sources that I've got. Every now and then I get some information off people that might be a little bit more close hold than other stuff, but I'm happy for people to also stare at this darkness if you want to come to my world. China's Communist Party is moving to achieve reunification with Taiwan through increased military action. Yesterday, the Chinese foreign minister said Taiwan is an inalienable part of China and that it is indisputable, historic, and legal fact. Today, China invaded Taiwan airspace, flying over Taiwan's islands with 8 Chinese J-16 fighters and 1 Y-8 reconnaissance aircraft. Taiwan has increased their military alert level. So that's what we're seeing at Taiwan at the moment. It is looking like it's starting to move that way, which is pretty, terrifying for me at least, in my mind. One of the questions that came in, by the way, if you're asking questions or you're giving information to me, and I'm happy to always give the sources of where questions come from, of where information comes from, but tell me that you want me to do that. Hey, just say, yep, yeah, you can tell people where this is from. And I know some of you who contact me, I know that you're happy for me to say your names and things like that, but otherwise I'll probably not say your name. I'll just read your question out, or I'll read your information out, just because there are some people who don't want to be like named in that way. So make sure you tell me if you want me to give you that reference. Yeah, reunification is a very nice way to say invade and take over. Correct. It's the international standard way, I think. All right. So what are the ramifications of potentially having 2 conflicts/wars going at once? Well, the ramifications are this. I think there might be some... So here's how I construct things going in my head, and I can be totally wrong, and feel free to pick holes in this at all. It's something that I call the RINC, R-I-N-C, and that is Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China. And I can see those 4 nations, and maybe even Pakistan now. So maybe the PRINC. So those 4 or 5 countries or nations, they, I can see an alignment forming between them, not an official one yet, but an alignment forming between them based on anti-Western ideals. And they could very easily fall into that sort of alignment based on those anti-Western ideals, because as we're seeing things escalate, it's actually going to force them to be pushed together. So US is, and has been for a while, kind of seen as the world police, the sheriff in town. Now, what happens when we stretch them out a bit? So US also has its own struggles internally, as a lot of the Western countries, as we do, as Western countries. And maybe that is part of the plan of these other nations. But the ramifications of having 2 conflicts going on at once is, I mean, there's a whole heap of ramifications. One of the big ones is that it spreads out what we can actually do and what we can focus on. So if things do kick off in Europe and things do kick off in the South China Sea, then we have to start looking at who we've got where and spreading people out and sort of, going, okay, well, we can't have everyone everywhere at once, and the US can't, secure the world all at once. So we have to start figuring out where, like doing a bit of triage, as it were. America is to blame for most of what we are seeing here today. That was a quote that came out. So that's Evelyn. Who said that? Somebody said that recently, and I didn't write down where it came from, but it was it was oh, that's right, China said it. China basically came out and said America is to blame for what's happening in the Ukraine. That was another piece that came out that I thought, wow, this is interesting. All these things that China's saying right now is really like kind of they're poking. I was about to say poking the bear, but they're not poking Russia. They're poking the bald eagle. I don't know. They're poking something. Tulsi said that. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. A country divided. Our Western countries, we're kind of united in theory, but even within our own countries, we're pretty divided right now. Or there is division that can be exacerbated too. So this is something we've got to look out for. So when we're talking about two conflicts going on, how does it affect the world and NATO and things like that? This is obviously the stepping off point for what we might end up seeing is World War III. If we do start seeing multiple conflicts around the world at once, this could be the step off. And the other thing that's actually happening there is Ukraine happens, and it increases the chance of something happening in the South China Sea with China. Now, if that happens, then it increases the chance of something else happening. Maybe, I don't know, Iran have already been starting to throw stuff around in the Middle East, and Israel, and we've seen a fair bit of trouble happening there right now. Maybe that kind of legitimizes them to start moving. Maybe North Korea, who have been throwing missiles around, maybe it legitimizes them to start moving. Maybe even Pakistan. Maybe they see this as their chance to start mobilizing. So it increases the likelihood of other conflicts happening. So this is the big ramification, I think, that will happen if China, the larger implication, I guess, if China does move on Taiwan in the next little bit. Yeah. So some interesting chat coming in there from Evelyn, but I'm just going to continue on this for 1 second, and then I might actually try and bring her in. Let's see if she wants to come in. She's probably not ready, but anyway. The economy, inflation, could this impact the move to CBDC, so central bank digital currency? The Great Reset, move for more surveillance and digital ID. Is this all part of the plan? So this is one of the questions that came into me this morning. We're looking at greater effect here. So lockdown measures that we've just been through and that we're starting to ease, here in Australia, at least, signing into everywhere that you have to go to, a form of, digital currency being pushed a lot more, and then the expansion of surveillance through things like sign-ins and all that sort of stuff, that tracking sort of stuff. If a war was to break out, like a world war, I think like what we just saw in the COVID times may pale in comparison. We were calling emergency powers into being for what is essentially something that I can't remember the latest statistics, but 0.3 or 0.02 or something death rate. If we're embroiled in a world war, then the legitimacy to have those emergency powers goes through the roof. And when they're in place, civilians have to do what they're told, essentially. So, I mean, there's a lot of scope for this. I'm not really here nor there on it. Like, not saying like, yep, there's 100% a cabal of Illuminati reptilian overlords that are instigating a giant reset to control us and put us in the matrix or anything. I'm just saying that if that is the case, then a world war would be a very good way to instigate it. Cool. All right. Evelyn just told me that she can't jump on, but that's fine. We'll do one. We'll do one soon. I'll tee one up. She doesn't like me throwing these things ad hoc. She's not as ad hoc as I am. In case you couldn't tell, I'm pretty ad hoc. Yeah. So I mean, there's no specific thing that I'm going to tell you. Like, yes, this is going to happen. This, and this, and this. Because what I've seen that's happened now is with Russia invading Ukraine, and in the way that they invaded Ukraine, this very hard and fast one, which, if you remember me saying, I said was, for me, the less likely avenue that they were going to take. I thought they were going to do the piecemeal attack, where they slowly take a bit and solidify, and take a bit and solidify, and it would have been seeing this for 3, 4, 5 years go on. That would be, to me, that was the most likely course of action. The most dangerous course of action is they just charge in and kick the door in, and they've done that. It's kind of like opened up the opportunity or the scope for dangerous actions to follow on. So I don't know what's going to happen from here on in. It's likely, I think, that China is going to move, and that we may even see stuff within the Middle East and the Korean Peninsula as well happen. And who knows else, like where, like other nations might see this as an opportunity as well to move. Do I think that China is invading Taiwan airspace and sea to try and provoke a reaction as an excuse to go all in? That would fit the playbook, I think, and that's kind of what we're seeing. Like that was slightly the playbook that we saw here in Ukraine, or at least from the Russian side, that was the playbook. That's what they were saying was happening. Kind of like that false flag type attack that's going on. Yes, they could be, but also China and Russia have a habit of pushing and seeing, and then pushing and seeing, and like this is a classical military tactic. In fact, like when I was in Afghanistan, like the Taliban used to do this to us all the time. When we first rocked up there as Aussies, they were like, "Who are these guys?" Like they look a bit different, and so they would fake an attack, or they would say they were going to attack, and they'd watch what we do. And they go, okay. And then they do it again, and they see what we do, and they go, okay, we're getting a pattern here. So they're watching the world. They're going like, we're just going to fly in through here. They're seeing, is Australia sending any ships? Australia sent one surveillance plane over. Okay, all right, it's interesting. Is the US mobilizing their fleet? No, doesn't appear so. So they're watching, and they're going to keep doing these sort of little things, I think, for a little bit. Until they're confident that, like, all right, I think we can get away with this right now. And then they might move in. Or, Taiwan steps it up and does something, and then China go, well, you attacked us, now we're coming in. It's and from their perspective, it'll be a rebellion within their own territory that they need to quell. So, possibly. Okay, so I just want to touch on 0 day. For those who haven't heard that term before, 0 day it's a cyber attack term, and essentially, like usually when people think about cybersecurity and things like that, you think, we've heard there's been a breach, or this person's stolen data, or whatever. They don't always do that. Sometimes, a hacker will find a gap or a hole or something like that in a system, and they'll just note it. They'll just go, okay, that's there, cool, and not say anything to anyone. Because usually the way we find out that there was something wrong with a system is that somebody exploited it, that they did something about it. They stole information, and people go, whoa, hang on, this information is gone or stolen or locked out or whatever. But if they don't do anything like that, then it's not like a lot of companies will spend the time and effort and money actually reviewing their own systems and trying to hack their own system to find where those gaps are. So these faults are called 0 day faults. The best way to describe it is, imagine, you wanted to get into someone's house, and you were walking past one day, and you saw them walk up to their front door and lift their mat and take a key from out the mat and unlock it and then put the key back. And you just go, okay, cool. I'm just going to note that's where they leave their key. And then you sit there and you surveil their house and you wait to the day that you want to go in there and you go and utilize that. So the theory behind zero-day attacks is that there are probably a number of actors, and probably a lot of them are state actors or hackers, that have zero-day attacks ready, planned, set to go, and are just sitting on them and waiting. So, and we don't know. It could be one or two. It could be like every major piece of infrastructure that we have could be compromised, and we don't have a clue about it. So, with what we're seeing now, and the propensity of places like China and Iran and Russia to utilize cyber means as a form of attack, I think it is pretty likely that they have a number of them up their sleeve and they're waiting for that point to actually utilize them. So we might start to see this. So it is something we need to start thinking about. How do you secure yourself? And I've said this a few times now, like when it comes to cyber stuff, I think we're going to enter into a time or a period in the next couple of weeks to years where we will be getting increased cyber attack activity, and it's going to have a increasingly disruptive effect on our lives, day-to-day lives. So if you just cast your mind back to what happened in the US with the pipeline that got shut down last year and how disruptive that was to parts of America, that's the sort of thing that could happen to us at the drop of a hat. Just got a message in that said, why can't refugees go to Poland? As far as I knew, refugees were pouring into Poland. One of the things that we've just seen is Russia's actually started to put forces along the Polish border there, so they could be stopping them, but I don't know. I haven't seen anything like that. Australian government has just approved up to $250 billion to upgrade their cybersecurity over the next 10 years, with its main focus on defence. Yep. So they announced that a couple of months ago. I remember that because I started thinking like, oh, maybe I should get more into the cybersecurity space. And then I thought, I'm old and can't learn any new tricks, so I'm not going to be bothered. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, that's interesting. That I thought that was actually a smart move that Australia should do. That increasingly our society is more and more reliant, i.e., vulnerable in a digital sense. So a lot of our major infrastructure is digital, and a lot of it is not just digital internally. It is actually connected to the internet somehow. So that opens up a whole heap of vulnerabilities for us, and we really need to focus on that. I think, like as a nation, really need to focus on securing that, and maybe even looking at other ways that we can do it, that it's not so interconnected and accessible by the wider world. Maybe go back to valves and hand cranks and actual human beings doing jobs. That would be a strange thing. But you can't hack a human being yet, unless we all live in the Matrix, and then we're all hacked anyway. So it doesn't matter. I went and watched that new Matrix film. It's terrible. Just made me wonder. It's like this is something in society where I'm like, why do we do this? Like, what was the point in doing this? It's like we just do things because we can a lot of the time, and I feel like they just made that Matrix movie because they can. I'm not sure what that was about. The market is extremely short in security cleared cyber security people. They're getting paid $150 to $200 an hour. That's some good cash. Not a bad option if you like computers. Yes, I don't like computers though. So no, I don't mind computers. It might be something that I start to move into. I do like physical security though, and I like staying fit, and I hate sitting down for long periods of time. So I just got this really nifty desk, everyone, so I can actually, that's going up. I don't know if you can see that. This desk is going up and down. That's pretty cool. So I can stand and do these things from now on. That's the plan if we're moving into a one world currency digital ID era. Definitely. So that's, if that's what they're moving towards, and it would make sense that that's what they're trying to move towards. Again, governments are essentially trying to control what's happening. I'm not saying that like in a nefarious way. It's just that's kind of the mechanism of governance, is to control a population as best they can. In that, if they can control them, they can keep them safer. So a good way to control people is, through manipulation techniques of like, if you want to get paid, or if you want this subsidy, or if you want this, or if you want access to this or this or this, then you have to do what you're told. And that's exactly what a one world currency will do. That's exactly what digital ID sort of stuff will do. Social credit system, essentially, which is, I think, what they're trying to move towards, which Luddites like me, will always chafe against. But then again, I'll just go live out in the bush if it comes down to it. All right, so I just want to kind of wrap up today. Again, feel free to chuck in questions, just so you know I'm starting to wrap up though. So if you've got any final questions, throw them to me now. But what I wanted to do is kind of round things out again today by reiterating the point that I started with, which was don't panic, don't freak out, don't go crazy, stay the course. I've been saying this sort of stuff for a while. When you're trying to prepare for disasters or for emergencies or things like that, it's not helpful to do that from a place of utter panic and fear. Yes, fear is good in a sense. Some fear is good. It's okay to be a little bit scared about things that can potentially harm you. That's the mechanism of that emotion. That's why we have it. We evolved that for a reason, so we can survive. But if we allow that to take over and drive all our actions, then we're going to make some pretty silly decisions. So just continue what you're doing. If you have the ability to up what you're doing a little bit, maybe buy a little bit more extra food or a little bit extra fuel and things like that, then do that. But if not, then just do what you've been doing. Continue prepping in the way that you're prepping. Every step that you're taking is one step further towards self-reliance and independence as a human being. So continue doing that. If electricity goes down, will it also shut down the running of gas stations? So most of the gas station pumps do run off electricity, the little Bowser thing. There are ways to access it without electricity, and a lot of Bowsers and things. A lot of petrol stations have backup like generator systems. Well, the big ones do. Maybe I'm in a small country town. I don't know if they do. It's probably more likely to here than anyway. So it's still accessible, but yeah, that could be something that could be problematic, getting gas out of the pumps. And that has happened in the past where there's been blackouts and people couldn't get the petrol actually out from the big tank in the ground. So that's something to think about. Okay. You were talking about home gas, not petrol. So home gas, it shouldn't affect gas. The gas system, depending on how it comes into your house, but like, so we don't have like town gas system here where I am. You have to actually buy big gas bottles and you hook them straight up into your, like next to your house. They sit next to your house. The pressure from the gas actually is the thing that pumps the gas through. And that happens for town gas in most places as well. Like it's not being pumped in or forced in. It's the pressure of that gas that's actually being pushed through. So it should work, because every house that I've ever been in that has gas in it, the gas has still worked in a blackout. I've never seen that go off. And if anyone has, please let me know. But as far as I know, gas and electricity are entirely two different systems when you're talking about a house. And yes, you should be getting ready to fight people in Coles for toilet paper. It's important. If you don't have enough toilet paper to wrap yourself up like a mummy at a moment's notice, then you don't have enough. No, obviously focus on, I got that it was a joke, by the way. You don't tell me you're joking. Obviously, you don't need to focus on things that aren't essential to your survival. That's the way I think about it. But you should also, put some thought into things that are going to make your life easier and better. It's not enough. Like you should focus on those survival things, food and water and things like that. But then also focus on things that can maintain your life to continue living in the way that you normally live as best as possible. So the types of food, store the food that you normally eat. The ability to cook food as well. All those niceties, electricity, if you can get generators or solar power or something like that. Toiletries, toilet paper, toothpaste and toothbrushes and all that sort of stuff, like the things that are going to make your life easier, and also hygiene as well. Like, that factors in there as well. So, I don't go crazy. Like when that whole toilet paper crisis went off, I didn't sit there and go like, oh, that's weird. Why are people going crazy buying toilet paper? From the standpoint of like, you don't need toilet paper. I was more from the standpoint of like, yeah, I always have a big store of toilet paper. Like I buy huge packets of toilet paper, and I have X amount always sitting in a storage cupboard. So you should have those sorts of things. They're hygiene and just for normal function. I always think like, what if I can't get out of my house for 2 weeks? Can I just sit here and live in my house for 2 weeks? And what if that 2 weeks was 2 months? Can I start to do that? Can I stretch things out to then? Just bought a homeopathic first aid kit. I think it is a necessity for health and sickness. Yep. So, first aid goes from like here all the way out to quite large, long-term sort of things. And it's definitely something you want to put some thought into. I've got heaps of first aid kits around my house. They're always floating around in different areas. Here we go. Here's one right here. I knew there'd be one within arm's reach somewhere. But think about those more long-term first aid things as well. And what happens if you can't access the normal first aid stuff? So what are alternatives that you can use? Maybe start to look at what herbs and things like that you can utilize, and if you can start growing them in pots around the house or in the garden out the back. Maybe even longer term stuff. So stitching wounds together, fixing broken teeth, all that sort of stuff might be worthwhile thinking about too. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to leave it there. Once again, thank you very much for watching, whether you're watching on the Instagram or the YouTubes. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate everyone who watches in on these. I just hope that they're worthwhile in some way for you guys, that they're adding value to your lives. Hopefully not freaking you out, or at least not freaking you out too much, freaking you out the right amount. As always, if there's any questions or anything you want answered, please feel free to send it through to me on the Instagrams or any other way that you want to do that. Do check out the Telegram channels as well. So specifically MAG Australia, Mutual Assistance Groups Australia. Check that one out. Jump on there, start to connect with other people, start to I really want us to start coming together as a community, looking after each other and starting to reach out and bring other people in as well. Switch other people onto the idea that being prepared is not tinfoil hat. It's not crazy. It is actually just common sense. This little magical power I have called common sense. And that I want to see more of it in the world. I would actually like it to be more common. Until next time, guys, stay safe, keep prepping, and Semper Paratus.